Yeah, the importance of intersubjective complexity is we legitimize, people have been concerned with interdisciplinarity. That has been going on now in many years. I mean, I remember in the 70s, the phenomenon of interdisciplinarity came up, namely, how do you integrate the knowledge that comes from different disciplines? Let's say integrate economics with sociology, with engineering, with psychology, and all that stuff. Well, that was very difficult, very difficult. In fact, we conducted experiments, and in 1970, we got an interdisciplinary team to design a hypothetical city of 1 million people. We observed them, and that was the origin of SDD. It started in the 70s when we discovered the inability of interdisciplinary teams to cross disciplinary boundaries. And then people started talking about transcending the disciplines. The best guy who wrote about that is a guy named Eric Jans, a physicist, an Austrian physicist, who wrote explicitly about what he called the paradigm of transdisciplinarity, in which you go beyond the disciplines. Now, the paradigm of transdisciplinarity, we have called it the intersubjectivity, which essentially recognizes the capacity of people from all walks of life to be engaged in the design of social systems and in dealing with complex systems, because their role is critical. Number one, because they have to be co-owners of both of the definition of the problems and the proposed resolution of these problems, number one. And number two, in addition to becoming co-owners, they also have to be sensitized to the actions that are to be taken or implemented to improve the situation. The distinction between the intersubjective complexity and the objective complexity, the fundamental distinction, is that intersubjective complexity includes fully the actions for improving the situation. The objective complexity excludes the actions to improve the situation. So the objective observations are observations that are, for example, engineering observations or phenomena that comes into the physical sciences. But when you come to, let's say, urban planning or even designing a health system, then you are talking about actions that incorporate the subjective observations or the intersubjectivity of different stakeholders observing the observations of other observers. And that's where the consensus gets to be very difficult, because you really have the diversity of viewpoints regarding what are the actions to improve the situations. How do you, in other words, design a system that converges to, that comes to an agreement and an understanding of the consensual way to resolve the situation? So that's where intersubjectivity for me means being sensitive to the actions that are necessary for improving the situation, and how do you enable groups of stakeholders to come to make high quality observations. High quality observations are the observations that result from the deliberation and the consensus. This is what we call high quality observations. And that's why you need successive approximations. So the observations in the beginning of each observer are not necessarily high quality, because they are not consensual observations.